Ashley. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. It's been a hot minute. I think that's part of my tagline now. First of all, grab a beverage because it's gonna be a long one. As you guys know, the end of 2021 has arrived and we are now heading into 2022. The anxiety that I'm feeling right now, it's overwhelming. So because of things that have happened in my life, I haven't been able to post lately. So this video is basically gonna be the rest of my 2021 wrap up. Let's go ahead and jump in. First of all, I'm a stats nerd. I love looking at stats. I like looking at things and seeing how far I've improved. But let's start with total pages read for the year of 2021. I read a total of 21,184. I read 67 books. My goal was 55, I believe. Compared to 2020, I read a total of 15,000 pages and I only read 51 books. Now, I know what you're thinking, Ashley. This isn't a competition. You're correct. But as far as for me and seeing this, it just makes me happy. I want to begin with Shade by Chad Nicholas. This was an interesting one. I don't know if you guys see that I'm a fan. I mean, I'm not a fan of murders, but I really enjoy delving and deconstructing behaviors as well as anything as far as for criminal forensics. When I was contacted by Chad to review this book, I jumped on it. I'm going to go through briefly through each and one of these synopsis. I'm not going to read out the full synopsis. I'm just going to kind of tell you a little bit about it and then move on and what I rated it and when I read it. Shade essentially is about two different timelines. You're going back and forth. It's about a serial killer that was been on the loose and was supposedly captured, and then you have a fast forward to the present time. Things are happening again. You know, we have followed these two main characters, one of which is a detective and the other one being a possible victim. Just looking at this and watching this, it was like I was watching a Netflix show. It was so cool. Chad has a book trailer for it. I have a reaction on my YouTube channel of that book trailer, so I'll leave that link down there, up there, everywhere. I read this in September and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I highly recommend if you're a true crime fan. The next book I read was The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. This was actually a buddy read that I did with Juan from Plagued by Visions and many other wonderful people. It was disturbing. I gave it a 5 stars. Really made me uncomfy. Clive Barker it's just such an amazing job. I actually listened to Clive Barker's narration of Hellbound Heart and it was just so creepy, like talking about being fully immersed into a story. It's like, it's almost like, you know, you're present and you're actually there. So needless to say, like I said, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. If you don't know what the Hellbound Heart is, the movie Hellraiser was actually inspired by this book by Clive Barker. Then we move on to River of Thieves by Clayton W. Snyder. This was a really cool book. This essentially is about this group of people that are kind of lassoed together by this one main guy and they go off on an adventure. This is set, I believe this is a grimdark fantasy. I did give it a 4 out of 5 stars and I read this in September. I picked up Emma by Jane Austen. This was actually a reread for me. So the first time I read this book, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. The second time, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars just because I've read some of Jane Austen's other works. And I feel like this one, compared to all of her other works, it just wasn't my favorite. At that point, I decided I wanted to move on to something spooky. I actually was gifted this by Brandy and Steve from Steve Talks About Books. This was interesting. This is the newest book that Stephen King has come out. It is a collection of short stories or novellas. I read this. I didn't realize that one of the stories was connected to The Outsider by Stephen King. So when I read it, I thought it was just another novella, and then people started telling me that there was more, and so of course I'm gonna read it. So I gave each and every novella a different rating, and so whenever I came to the end of this book, I averaged it to be about 4 stars. There was some, I believe Mr. Harrigan's phone was the creepiest one. Another one of my favorites was Rat. I thought that was disturbing. It has to deal with a man going out in the woods, and he is going out there to kind of inspire himself to write and finish his book. This rat appears, and at first he's thinking, is it a real rat? Highly recommend if you're a fan of Stephen King. I read Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. When I tell you this is spicy, like this is ghost pepper spicy. This is a romance novel based on these women getting abducted, and this one specifically, her name is Georgia. She's a southern gal, and while they're being abducted, something happens and they are stranded on an unknown planet. Lo and behold, Georgia goes off adventuring, and she is found by this hunky blue man that has a tail and horns. Anyways, things happen. I have mixed feelings on this, but I did give it a 5 out of 5 stars just because it really took me by surprise. From there, I read Kings of Ash by Richard Nell. This is the second book in the series. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I read it in October. It just keeps getting better and better. I still haven't read the third book in the series, and I need to, because I just need to know what happens to Ruka. My baby Ruka. My boy. That's my cinnamon bun, okay? And I'm just thinking, if anything happens to him, shit will hit the fan. The Kings of Ash and Sand follow Ruka and Kale. It's just this grim, dark fantasy. It's hard-hitting. One of the first pages in the first book, it really just hits you hard from the get-go. 5 out of 5 stars. Let's talk about The Troop by Nick Cutter, shall we? Okay, wow. It was a lot to digest. I actually listened to this on audiobook. This book is based in Canada, and this scout master, Tim Riggs, takes these group of boys every year, once a year, to camp out in the wilderness. As they are there, something happens and an intruder washes up on the shore. This intruder is carrying something deadly and something disturbing. It's just bad. It was a really good book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Her Soul to Take by Harley Laroux. One of the spiciest. I mean, this book belongs on the hot tamale train because it's that hot. Like, you're gonna need a glass of milk, you're gonna need some bread, whatever it is. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. I read this in October. So this is basically monster smut. This follows a young girl who is coming home from traveling in, I believe she was at college, and she's coming home and transferring back home to where she grew up. And it has really culty vibes. It has demons that seduce our main character. So I saw Iron Widow by Zhao. This book reminds me a lot of the movie Pacific Rim, where you have these big, humongous robot type things that are fighting up against these alien life forms. You have these pilots and you have the co-pilots. One is a female, one is a male. Pilots are praised and they get the credit for everything, while the co-pilots, these women, are just being used as conduits for their power. I gave Iron Widow a 5 out of 5 stars. Then I buddy read House of Fleas by Mark Z. Danielewski. This is one of those books that you really just need to take your time. If you've never heard of House of Leaves, you're fortunate. No, I'm just kidding. This is a wild ride. You have this huge book. I mean, it's right here. It's a thinker. You need to take your time. It's got different formats. It's got little notes. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Then we moved on to another buddy read. We read Beguiled by Night by Nicole. It's about a vampire. It's about time travel. It's about love. It's about loss. It's about grief. It's really a genre bender, so I can't really say what type of genre because it doesn't really fit any genre. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. We moved on to The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. I've had this book on my TBR for the longest time, and I finally got to reading it, and now I wish I would have read it sooner because it is such an awesome book. It is based off of Russian folklore. You're really presented with this group of people that live in this country. Some of them have been converted to Christianity, and you have this ancient old religion that a lot of people, especially on the outskirts, still follow. I had a great time. I read this with Chaz from Bookish Chaz and Danielle Bokara. I was feeling a little bit in the holiday spirit, so I decided to listen to Christmas, Coco, and a Corpse by Maddie Day. This is a cozy mystery. Hey, Editing Ashley here. So first of all, I don't know if you can tell, but I am having a really high anxiety day, so bear with me. But what I wanted to say is that this is basically about a woman who owns a local restaurant where she makes her family's famous hot cocoa. A man dies after drinking a cup, so in order to clear her name and her reputation for her store, she goes and investigates. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I read it during December. I read The Three Scrooges by Jeff Lane. I love retellings, and when I heard Jeff Lane had wrote a book about the Christmas Carol, but like alternating timelines, it blew my mind. Instead of following the one Scrooge, you are thrust into this world where the spirits are dying and they're going away, and they need these 3 Scrooges. You know, I gave it a 3 stars. It reads like Charles Dickens wrote it. Beautiful. I want to talk to you guys about Nightfall by Daniel Barnett. It is a horror novel, and the best way that I can describe this book, it's like Stephen King and Edgar Allan Poe came together and had a baby, and that baby was Daniel Barnett. This is dark. It's just so well crafted. The synopsis of Nightfall, you are thrust into this apocalyptic world, essentially, where the sun has gone away and only nighttime reigns. You have John, who is this badass. His main priority is going and finding his fling, Maria. While the story progresses, it turns into an actual nightmare. The weirdest shit happens. You have this woman, while she's sitting on the front porch, she's drinking a yellow substance in a pitcher. This book scared the shit out of me. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I wish I could give it more. Nightfall draws you in so much that you have to immediately go and get the next book. So what did I do? That's what I did. I went and got Lullaby by Daniel Barnett. Lullaby comes in and he gets a call from his daughter who lives on the East Coast and he's on the West Coast. And she tells him, "Dad, I need your help." And he hears this lullaby. And it's on TV screens, on cell phones, on tablets, you name it. Anything that is hooked up technologically, and this lullaby will cause you to fall asleep with a smile on your face. And if the person who is asleep dies, whatever kind of nightmare that they carried around with them materializes. I'm doing a terrible job explaining this, but y'all, so good. Go check it out. It's on Amazon. They're really short and really quick reads. I have to say, I had a lot of favorites in 2021, and I had a lot of just duds. Let me know what was the one of the best books that you read for 2021. What is one of the worst books you read for 2021? And if you have read any of the books that I have mentioned in this video, let's discuss. I have a Discord along with a couple of other fantastic friends. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Stay sassy. See you later. Bye.